Hello everyone, my talk is going to be on integrating Lightning into Bitrefill. My name is Justin Camarena and I work for Bitrefill. So what is Bitrefill? Bitrefill originally was a prepaid phone company. We sold prepaid credits in 107 countries. We were Bitcoin only for many years and launched in 2014. We have recently expanded into other products such as gift cards. So the path to Lightning integration. Originally I joined Bitrefill as an intern a little over a year ago. I was tasked to take away our dependence on third-party Bitcoin APIs, move refunds away from Copay, so using our own node, our own refund wallet. And it was basically the work I did was sort of integrating Bitcoin Pay server before it existed, but on a private level for a company. So scaling issues. So during the end of 2017, we started to see huge fee spikes and backlogs. So this affected many merchants and people using Bitcoin, accepting Bitcoin. So we were no exception. We actually have a lot of low-value products in in some countries. Maybe not so much in the US, but even if you try to buy the lowest product in the US, it would be really expensive to buy on-chain. So for the centralized approach, we actually had accounts. So we had Bitcoin deposits and we had the ability for users to pay us instantly and be refunded instantly without worrying about fees. We also started to accept we also upgraded to SegWit addresses. I think we were one of the first merchants to do this. They were nested addresses. We were actually using them in production before SegWit actually activated, but after it locked in. So it was only for low value amounts that we swept after it activated. We also accepted altcoins, which compared to Bitcoin are still pretty low volume, not really a long-term solution in my eyes, but there were users that wanted to use it, so why not? And integrating Lightning. So to actually integrate Lightning, originally our backend went with BTCD and LND. So on the server, I already had Bitcoin D running, but LND didn't actually support Bitcoin D at the time, so I was sort of forced to use BTCD. So why LND? Well, before I joined Bitrefill, I was actually a tester for LND for over a year before that. So it was something I was already familiar with, and the API was more fleshed out than everything else at the time. So I used LND with gRPC on a Node.js backend on a server. So I basically reused a lot of the work I did to move Bitrefill away from third-party Bitcoin APIs. So for our, how it actually works, so this is more application level, higher level. So our application backend, we have two backends, application backend and our server where we host all of our cryptocurrency related stuff. So our application backend calls out to our server API with for an invoice. There are like many params you use, but the most important ones for us are the memo, the Satoshi amount, and the expiry. So for us, I thought the easiest way was to just put the ID we use on our application backend into the memo, and have an identifier. So I have a Bitrefill and then the ID for what it is. So this would be for orders. And then the application backend would keep state of it being paid, refunded, handle notifications incoming from our server, from the LND node. Expiration is something that I really like about Lightning. Usually we have to set an expiration on the front end, like show a timer, pay within 15 minutes. We have different states, paid, partial. But usually people keep paying after expiration, or they use an exchange, and it's sort of been a really big issue where a user pays through an exchange, and it comes an hour later, and the user's like, what's going on? And the order's already expired. So Lightning sort of helps prevent that, except in some cases. So for subscribing invoices for notifications, so what I did was LND has an endpoint for subscribing invoices. So you subscribe to this endpoint, and it will send you relevant notifications about Lightning payments. So in our case, when a payment is settled, it sends a notification, and it has these sort of properties passed, and I pass these to the application backend, being the memo, amount settled, and amount paid set. So for me, at Bitrefill, the application backend parses the ID from the memo. I grab the amount and the amount paid in Satoshis, and I verify that on the application backend. So yeah. So deploying Lightning. So originally we were testnet only for a few months. We didn't want to jump right away into mainnet, and there was actually no official release of any mainnet client on mainnet at this time. So this was in 2017. I had a local version running Lightning. So this was just after Segway activated. So I found it a great experience to run on testnet to find bugs with users testing Bitrefill. It was also something that many users used on testnet to have an experience of Lightning, sort of get the feel of how it works, and perhaps even show it as an example for other merchants, other application devs. So challenges integrating Lightning. So one of the early challenges I had was stability. LND would crash a lot. I'm a relatively new dev, so I'm not too much involved or knowledgeable on server-side optimizations or anything like that. So stability was a big issue for me. Bugs were plentiful. I think I've also reported tens of bugs on the LND repo, which is sort of expected for a new product. Money loss on testnet. I mean, I guess the model was break often, so many of us that were testing on testnet often lost money. So when there were users that wanted to try this on mainnet, we were sort of wary due to our experience of losing funds on testnet. Lately, I've also been having wallet issues. UTXO is out of state in a wallet. Interoperability issues. So basically, other implementations would force closed channels on us. So there were basically 3 Lightning networks for a time. There was the C Lightning network, LND network, and Eclair network, with some of them working with each other at certain times and breaking at other times. So there's little to no liquidity between different nodes. Like in many times, I wouldn't be able to pay Satoshi's Place. I wouldn't be able to pay Blockstream Store, stuff like that. Or I would have liquidity, but it would often close up after a few hours or days. So Lightning nodes. So there's sort of a take that merchants should not be a routing node. Like in my opinion, I mean many devs also believe this, that merchants should be not public. So mostly having private incoming channels for nodes they pay. So Bitrefill right now at this point, we are a routing node. In my opinion, merchants are already online 24/7, and we're suited to route. And especially at this sort of time where we're sort of bootstrapping this network. We sort of have skin in the game, so to speak. In my opinion, running behind private channels is sort of centralized. We basically would have to talk to node operators, ask them for liquidity, and they would also be able to raise the fees for users paying us. So we don't want to be in a situation where we have nodes we have liquidity with raising fees and users suddenly have a really expensive experience paying us. But perhaps in the long view, it may be a better route to have it private. In Bittrefill's case, liquidity has not been a problem in my opinion. If anything, we have more than enough for the current demand. In my opinion, if a service has demand and usage, nodes will actually open channels to you and provide liquidity so they earn fees. I saw this with Alex opening channels to Bitrefill early on, earning fees. There's also the issue of us as being a routing node. We don't really want to close channels from users. So that would, when we need liquidity, we have the issue of we can't sweep funds off easily. We have funds stuck on our node. But we have swept off funds. I mean, in the past few months, we've had users close channels, either due to bugs or due to upgrading or something, and we've been able to sweep money off. Another thing I've set is a minimum incoming channel limit. So I've set it to something high, like 0.01 Bitcoin. This has sort of helped to avoid small channels that could likely close with small balances. I mean, it could still happen with big channels, but I feel like it's more likely to happen with smaller channels. The fees go up and the channel capacity is lowered, and you have users that send a penny or something. It sort of avoids those users that want to open small channels with us. I mean, we have plenty of capacity. You can basically open to any node on a network that has incoming channels with us and pay us just fine. It's also, originally we actually didn't do this, and we saw my first node having more than 300 channels and having performance issues. Having a limit also helped with performance. Like right now we only have around 70 channels and it runs really well. So initially, the focus for Bitrefill has been receiving. We are a merchant. We mostly care about receiving payments. I didn't want to dwell too much into the sending, and I refunded orders on chain initially. Actually, I still do at the moment. So there's also this issue with sending where you have to be really careful. I mean, you could steal funds from a node if you have free refunds. Receiving is easy, sending it hard and very dangerous. So I'm going to explain how you can steal funds if you're not careful with sending. So basically, there's like a fee siphoning attack if you're using a node, but it requires specific conditions. Like if you offer free refunds, say a user pays for a service and then we offer free refund. Usually, you do not pay the fee to refund. You just pay the whole thing. The merchant covers that. And in Lightning, you can't really do that because it opens yourself up to attack. So say we have two nodes, an attacker has node 1 and then has control of node 2. Node 1 has a ton of incoming capacity, and there's only one route from 1 to 2 balanced. I mean, you can self-balance this. Say the attacker 1 pays Bitrefill for an order or product that he knows will fail and require a refund. Let's see if and then if we offered Lightning refunds without a fee, the attacker would then create an invoice for the node 2 and refund the money. And then the link from node 1 to node 2 would have they would raise the fee, so the attacker owns both fees. So then you just sort of repeat the scenario over and over again. And with Lightning, payments are fast, and there's no cost to send money if you have a direct channel. And you can sort of just start earning fees and stealing from a merchant or something. I mean, you can also obtain liquidity for the first node by using a channel opening service. So it doesn't really cost so much to pull this off. I mean, to mitigate this, you have to understand what to do when you send. You really want to rate limit refunds to nodes, but at the same time, that may cause issues if you're sending to someone who has a custodial node. Fee limits don't actually solve this. They only limit the fund loss. So if a node accepted a really high fee rate, you'd be able to steal money at a faster rate. But if you had a fee limit, you would still be able to steal money. It would just be you would just have to try it many more times. So in my opinion, you have to pass on routing fees to the user and refund and take that away from what you're refunding, in my opinion. So basically, before you integrate a service or an app where you hold custody of other users' funds and they send through you have to take this into consideration. So I also think we need to create best practices for sending Lightning payments. There isn't really anything right now at the moment, but for a testnet, I wouldn't really dwell too much into this. This is more on when you're on mainnet and in production. I'll talk more about sending tomorrow and in my experience I've had with sending. So all the work I've done is sort of optimize our back end. So originally I wasn't even restarting LND after crashes. I mean, I used Supervisor D for that. I migrated to a new node using Bitcoin D once that was supported. I find BTCD sort of I'll answer questions out there. I find BTCD sort of vulnerable. Other than consensus issues, I feel that if you had a corruption issue with BTCD, you can't really change the backend for Bitcoin to Bitcoin D at this moment. Actually, I think you can, but at the time it was only supported. If you corrupted and it took 2 weeks to resync, you basically lose money on your node if it takes that long to sync back up. When I created a new node, I actually didn't have much problems with liquidity. I created a new channel from our old node to the new node, and I sort of self-balanced that channel. So any incoming capacity could come from my old node until the new one had capacity itself. I had a automatic wallet unlock, so LND has an unlock wallet gRPC endpoint. I feel that if you don't have restarts with an LND node, say you have someone force close on you when your node crashes, and you're away on a weekend without internet, it seems like a bad idea not to have it just automatically restart and have less risk of fund loss, in my opinion. I've also been working on Lightning deposits. I can talk about that tomorrow. Withdrawals. And, I mean, I may be kind of negative, but there's hope. I mean, even with all these issues, I feel that most of these issues can be fixed or mitigated. It's still pretty early. I mean, I'd rather run into these issues myself before other people do, and make them public before other people run nodes on mainnet. I feel like Lightning will only get better. I didn't even talk about like mitigation strategies for backups. Like right now is just the reckless way of not having backups for our node. So, thanks. Any questions?
So for the automatic node restart, does that mean you have to like guys password array?
Yeah, on the server. But if they have access to the server, they can just steal money from you anyway. I don't really see the point.
So you can unlock it over here, right? So
Yes,
you
yes.
Your password on like one very locked out server.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, that's what I do. All right.
So I understand your setup is kind of like some sort of like proxy node that's like actually exposed to more of the internet, like open port on 9735 or whatever. And
Yes.
You have like an internal node.
Yes.
That is like maybe where actually most of your funds are stored, and you need to rebalance. You'll open connection from that internal node to the proxy node and send fund.
It wasn't really a proxy node. It was more of I had to migrate to a new node.
Oh.
So I was running an older version of LND before the beta. And I've been having to have patches to actually have it keep it running. Without that, it would just crash. So at this point, I felt I had to move to a clean state. So I wanted to move without having any issues. That's why I do it.
Okay.
It's not like a proxy. Thank you.
You said that receiving was easy.
Can you?
Is there an issue where you need to go far for originating version?
What do you mean?
I mean, each merchant needed to have funds locked in front of it, right?
Yes. So right now there's no exchanges that accept Lightning, so I can't realistically offload much of it right now unless I close channels or splice out, which there isn't that functionality right now. But I mean, for us it isn't really much of an issue. We are a Bitcoin company. That's why it's sort of long term, I think many are pushing toward having private channels between nodes, so you're able just to close a channel and without having a user complain or anything. So there's that strategy. But right now I do this for liquidity and helping bootstrap the network.
One selling point for the Lightning network is that it seems to be pretty cheap to like transfer money on the Lightning network.
Yes.
Now you described some problems that come with it, right? So
Yes.
this basically raises the cost for transfer of value on the Lightning network.
Yes, there's
Because
actually.
you have to even this out over all like people paying it. So do you have an estimate of like what's a reasonable fee for a merchant should be to accept Lightning payments, like through experience, like how much fraud is there or how much risk behavior is there that you have to like cover? Or
I mean, I haven't personally seen much fraud or anything. Everything comes in instantly. If anything, I've seen issues with people paying after expiration due to bugs, but it hasn't been really intentional. On our own node, I've had breach attempts, but I think those were due to nodes running in older state. So there hasn't really been a cost. It's more on sending, I guess, which I haven't implemented. But even then, fees are pretty low. Everyone runs the default. I think there's only 1 or 2 nodes that charge premium services. So I think at this point it's fine.
Is there a way to, sorry, do you find the
talk about this tomorrow on the UX
Oh,
stuff.
okay.
Yeah, I didn't mention it.
How would you be time spent managing the Lightning product versus other various differences?
Well, I mean, most of our other software like Bitcoin I can leave it alone for months. It's like very hands off. I do security updates. Or, I think LND right now is at a point where you sort of have to babysit it. You have to watch it. I mean, maybe set up email alerts if it goes down or something. There's bugs. So right now, I've spent some considerable amount of time just babysitting, but that's due to it being an early product, and I don't feel like there'll be such a problem in the next few months or maybe a year or something.
But if you reach the 0.01 Bitcoin channel minimum, is it just trial and error and see what makes sense, or?
Just something relatively high.
Okay.
It can be lower or higher. I've actually tried lower ones, but I found I would rather, at 1.1 Bitcoin, there were less users making direct channels. It was some were, but those were more of the high volume users. Say they wanted to pay for $100 products, $200 products instantly, so then they would open money. But it's just sort of my config. You can set this something different if you want. Thank you guys.